This is Aer Dogs, a podcast series on the aviation industry that will take you from the boardroom to the boarding gates. Tim Shattock tells Dec Ryan about flying with Darby Kennedy at Weston Aerodrome, working with Prince William at Babcock, electric planes, safety in the industry, and finding love at Ryanair.
How are you? I'm Dec Ryan. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Tim Shattock, Senior Aviation Advisor with Irelandia, a close friend. And Tim, you're very welcome.
Thanks, Dec. Great to be here.
Our kind of favourite question, and we get it out straight away, Tim, is when did you become an aerosexual?
About 14, 15 years of age.
Yeah.
Aeroplanes flying over the house, always looking up, wondering what type of aircraft it was, wondering how they flew.
Was it a fly path or?
It was near Baldonnel. We were near Baldonnel, Walkinstown, so occasionally
yeah.
these things would fly over.
Yeah.
And just fascinated with the whole notion of aircraft in the air and wondered what it was all about, basically. So from that stage on, things developed.
We were chatting earlier about the very famous Darby Kennedy, and for people who don't know about Irish aviation history or about Ireland, can you just explain how you got your flying lessons with him and the kind of person he was, because he was an amazing man.
Absolute legend. So Darby was in Aer Lingus in the old days. Flew with them for a number of years. He bought Weston Aerodrome and developed a flying school there. And anyone in the old days in aviation knows Darby. I started flying out there in 1980. Took my first flying lesson. I still have the receipt at home in a scrapbook. £16 and 80 pence for about 30 minutes flying. So it's different time. Darby was usually to be found in Weston, running around in dark blue overalls, fixing tractors, giving orders, running around the place.
Great.
But it was an incredible guy.
Yeah.
I think I flew with him 2 or 3 times, but he sent me solo in the 12th of December, 81, frosty morning, and did a 20 minutes circuits with him, and then he said stop the aeroplane, and he got out. At that moment it gets a bit serious because you're the only one. But an incredible guy, a legend, and very privileged to have met him, number one, and to have certainly flown with him as well, although it was only a few times.
Was his pilot, you know the language better, but was the way he managed students, was it stern or was it calm or?
I would say disciplined.
Yeah.
He didn't suffer fools gladly. And if you did something stupid in the aircraft, you'd be the first to know about it.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of anecdotes and tales. I don't know if some of them are true or not. But yes, he could be quite stern.
Yeah.
An excellent instructor.
Yeah.
But it was always a little bit formidable when you were told you were going flying with Darby. That was the time to visit the bathroom in a hurry and get yourself ready.
Very, very good. Talk to us, please, about, we met in Ryanair, but talk to us about joining Ryanair.
Yep.
I know you worked in a couple of companies before that, but this is overall just a fun chat about aviation. Talk to us about the joining Ryanair. And
I mean, just going back before Ryanair in terms of hearing about Ryanair. I mean, as you remember, Dec, getting across the Irish Sea was always a challenge. I remember hearing about Ryanair in the ether in about late 84, 85. Then the Waterford service started at Gatwick. I got in a car, drove down, met Jerry Hayden, met Pat Griffin, who was flying there. You remember Pat? Yeah. He was in Aviair, and a couple of the other guys, and we met in the hotel, Dooley's, and chatted to the guys. And I said, look, if there's ever an opportunity coming up, I'd love to join. So that was called, I suppose, early stage networking back in 85.
Yeah.
And then I remember Gay Byrne, listening to Gay Byrne one morning, and he said, he used to read the newspapers out, and he said, I'm reading that an airline called Ryanair has been granted its certificate for Dublin Luton. Yeah. So cut a long story short, had an interview in the old flight line office in Arrivals in Dublin Airport. Yeah. If I'm correct, I think you were there. Mm-hmm. And I was.
Jesus, if I was there, Tim, you wouldn't have got through.
I know, that's why I said I think. But that was great. And Ryanair, as you know, was hiring big time at that stage. And I was in the operations space. Yeah. So it was a quick enough interview, and myself and a couple of other guys were hired for the operations role. Operations, as you know, is kind of busy. Yeah. So that was great. And then all the prep stuff. You know, we started flying, as you know, the 748s in May '86, and working back from that, a ton of work to be done in terms of prepping and everything else. Yeah. It was fantastic. There's no other word.
And you found love in Ryanair.
I did. I don't just mean the company. I did, yeah. So I'm married to Adrian. We're 30. I had to count there for a second. 35 years married this year.
Fantastic.
And Adrian was the number one on the first Ryanair flight. An interesting story regarding you, but you were on the flight, and she was told Declan Ryan's on the flight. So again, everyone kind of books up and everything else. Adrian and I met there. We got married in '89, and she's got very happy memories of Ryanair too. Yeah,
great. I love those kind of stories. If I remember correctly, she was one of the main supervisors in flight?
Yeah, Adrian was, I think there was CSSs and cabin crew supervisors. Yeah. So Adrian was with a number of the other cabin crew who were down in Alia in Jordan.
Yeah. Was that Rona?
Rona and Maeve Fitzpatrick, I think. So they, a number of them came back and joined Ryanair, a bit like the pilots coming back from Nigeria with the Air Tower operation. Yeah. So it was good. So Ryanair, where love stories begin. I can see the next title of the book coming up somewhere.
And to put it into perspective, people like Rona and Adrian, who were trained abroad, they were put up on a pedestal because a lot of the crew just came in and did our own training and so on. So somebody who had a couple of years in Jordan or in the Middle East and so on, but it was great.
Yeah.
Why did you leave Ryanair?
Left Ryanair. It's a good question. So the honest answer is,
I think it's a great decision, but I just thought a question I should ask.
It's a good question, and it's very relevant. I the truth is, I always was interested in the business part of aviation, and I came to a point where the ops environment in Ryanair was fabulous, and as you remember, it was roller coaster stuff in terms of jets coming in and early expansion in the early days. But I was always interested in business. How did the business work of aviation? So that was the driver for leaving. Yeah. And I got this other opportunity then in Park and joined Park, and that led to other things. But the answer is, wanted to understand not so much more about operations, business. How did this work?
Yeah. Kind of the final question I want to ask you on your career is, you have this amazing bio, and I know you well enough, sir, that you play down your achievements, but you were CEO in so many different places, and for Bond helicopters and Babcock and Alpha and so on. Is it just your nature to play these things down?
No. Sorry, that's no. Yeah, it's two answers. No. I'm low profile by nature. Yeah. Okay. I like being in the background. Yeah.
And by the way, a bit of that was Ryanair. We would have one parrot singing. It would be at Eugene or whoever. But the rest of us kept the heads down.
Indeed, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
So
I hope you didn't regard it as a criticism.
No, definitely not.
And I think it's a lovely trait in Ireland. Yeah. We just keep the head down, but young man, you're really low profile. All the girls want to hear about when you were in Babcock, about Prince William being under your command.
So it was kind of weird and funny, but I was fortunate enough to be the MD in Babcock when Babcock acquired Bond, and I headed over to Cheltenham in 2014. And, one of the first management meetings coming, I knew that Prince William was coming on board, but there was prep to be done and everything else. So cutting a long story short, he joined us as a pilot for 2 years. And it was made very clear to us by Kensington Palace, he absolutely wants to blend in.
Yeah.
No errors or graces. Wants to be called William, and he'd be out at the coffee van when it rode up at 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And very good pilot, excellent pilot, and great team member. Yeah. So that was exciting. Funny story, if I can.
Yeah, please.
But we had guys from.
We're gagging for funny stories.
We had guys from Cork over. They were looking at setting up the air ambulance operation in Cork. So they were over chatting to us. And we gave them the kind of dog and pony tour, as we all do. And, the simulator and the hangar and walking around. And one of the ladies in the group said to me when we went back into the boardroom, said, "That's really impressive." He said, there's a guy down there, it's a spitting image of Prince William. And I had to bite my lip and say, it actually is him. So there's a rush to the door to try and get an autograph. We had to stop them, but it was funny at the time.
Well, we know what people from Cork are like. One of the questions that we like to cover is, why doesn't, in your view, Tim, the industry talk more about safety? The car industry is brilliant at talking about safety. Like, if you get into a Volvo or a Mercedes, you feel safe straight away. Why? As I said before, I don't think Michael should be shouting about it, but I think Delta should. And I'm not talking about advertisements, but we kind of, it seems to be taboo, doesn't it? Or what do you think?
It's a really good question, and to be really honest, I could stay here for days talking about this. But part of the answer is it's an automatic assumption that safety is just there. When you board an aeroplane and everything else, you're not on the website cruising for safety record of the airline or anything like that. So there's an automatic assumption that once you have your certificate and you're up there and flying, that you're safe.
Sorry, can I just stop you there?
Please.
You seem to be talking from the operation side.
Yeah.
Joe Public, I'm trying to find the right word, because when it comes to safety, you always have to get it right, or try to get it right. Do you think they've been quietly convinced by the industry that it's safe?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, the reality is that Joe Public, when they go down a jet bridge boarding an aeroplane, they're not really aware, and this is why I go back to this automatic assumption that the airline is safe. It's an area that, at one level, airlines don't want to shout too much about, and particularly at the moment as well. I mean, a small example, just a small little vignette, but the days of catastrophic airliner structural failures like the Comet and the DC-10 issues in the late 70s.
Whoa, Tim, whoa.
They're gone.
Yeah.
The engineering is now excellent, and the aircraft are fantastic. The issues are, the biggest cause of accidents to this day. It's either pilot error or intentional pilot action. So it's a slightly dark side that the airline industry doesn't really want to talk about for understandable reasons. Yeah. And again, I think Joe Public just has an automatic assumption any airline is safe, which at one level is okay, but it's much deeper than that.
So if the guys, the CEO in Lufthansa and Ed Bastian, the boss man in Delta, asked your opinion, you would say, when it comes to safety, steady as she goes, or would you?
No, I wouldn't. I would never say that about safety.
Listen, when I mention carriers like that, I regard them as leaders, of course, and they have brilliant safety records and so on. But I'm not talking about. I'm talking about the industry kind of not communicating enough about.
No, that's I understand that. I think with safety has to be and is in a lot of the airlines you've just mentioned a living, breathing thing. It's not something sitting on the shelf that we've done our safety manual and that's done, let's move on. It has to be embedded in the culture.
For sure.
Throughout the entire culture. And if it's not, that's always an issue which will bite you in the ass, to be honest. And I think in a much it's not an airline example, but for example, and as a accountable manager in the helicopter company in Cheltenham, as an example, you have incident reports coming across your desk all the time. Yeah. We had a helicopter landing in a small confined area and rubbish bags started to lift, which can go into the rotors. Yeah. So you drill down, you find out what happened. We drill down, the bill wasn't paid for the collection of the rubbish bags. So therefore, we got the accountants, the finance people involved. They went back in for a refresher safety course. It actually involves everyone in the airline in our operation. Yeah. So it has to live and breathe.
Yeah. No, that's
to your SMS safety management system.
Yeah. That's a great example. Yeah. I'm not segueing from safety into the next subject, but it is very topical. What's your views on the EI strike, Aer Lingus strike?
Well, it's another good question.
And if you don't mind me saying, you live out in Malahide, and there's probably 100 or 200 pilots around you. Yeah,
and I bumped into a few recently as well, and we had a chit-chat about it. But my honest view is everyone knows this dispute is going to be resolved. That's going to happen. That's a certainty. I think it is the pilots probably need to reflect more. I think the timing of this strike, the way it's being done, is a very blunt.
Do you think they care?
I do think they care. I do think they care, but I think there's another agenda going on, a more militant agenda from the previous leadership in IALPA. I think that is going on. But I also think it's a bit selective to say we want 24% based on inflation. It's a bit selective because also the world is changing and competitive issues for the airline. I do agree with the management side of things in terms of anything in excess of whatever it is, the 12.2, 12.25 should be related to improvement in flexibility and productivity. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I can see both sides of the argument, but I think just shouting for a 24% and downing tools, and particularly July, all the impact it's having, and arguably the reputation on Ireland Inc. as well overseas. And the other thing about that deck as well is, it struck me there last week. Quantum is very interesting when you look back at what we were just talking about. So Aer Lingus operates, 57, 58 aircraft? Things have even changed for Aer Lingus from the days of the 80s, the glory days, the 70s. Aer Lingus needs to stay relevant. It's an operating company of IAG. It's not Irish owned anymore. And when you look at 57, 58 aircraft versus 600 plus in Ryanair, it's incredible. Yeah. So I think it'll be resolved, but I think the danger now is both sides get entrenched. And it happened back in the late 70s. There was another bad strike with pilots in Aer Lingus. It'll get resolved. I think one side is going to have to see the light, shall we say. Yeah. That's my honest view.
Yeah, great. Couple of things from my side. One is they're comparing themselves to Lufthansa, which is just wrong. And I think Ryanair have played it very well. And when Ryanair play it wrong, I'll holler. It's not going to help Ryanair. And listen, my heart goes out to people who've saved up for the year.
Absolutely.
Anxious when they get to the airport. Going at the busiest time of the year and the most expensive time of the year, and it just adds to the anxiety. And
I agree.
I'm not too sure I'm going to be called Tilly the Hun for this, but I would love if there's certain times of the year that people couldn't strike, and I'm talking about Christmas time. Let's say you're coming home from Sydney, and you're going to see your folks for the first time. Anyway. One of the questions I love asking is, which CEO in the industry would you like to go out for a beer and a dinner, and why?
Another good question. So I'm going to take some license if I possibly can. So
go for it.
If I'm going for dinner, it assumes the person's living, which is always a good thing. But
sorry. Joe took two, one dead, one live.
Okay. My honesty, I would take one. It'd be Juan trip.
Wow.
It would be absolutely. And
why?
Because a number of things. I think when you look back at Juan Tripp, the CEO of Pan Am, and what he and his team accomplished, he didn't do it single-handedly, back in the 30s, essentially opening up the world in a world where There was no mobile phones. We hadn't got the tech we have now. You're opening up the Pacific for the first time. You're flying clipper flying boats. You're flying in China in the 30s and 40s. You're opening up South America. Yeah, certainly opening up the Atlantic, and you're telling Boeing that we want a 707 and your launch customer for both 707 and 74.
Would you explain to the punters out there what a clipper is?
Clipper is, well, Clipper was the call sign for Pan Am when it was flying, and a clipper is a flying boat. It's a large flying boat, and Pan Am operated a ton of these, operating all over the world.
Did they go into Foynes?
They did, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, trip when, actually on the reading list, there's a great book called An American Saga. It's about Juan Tripp.
Okay.
So it's on a reading list, and I'm scouring eBay trying to get a decent copy.
Okay. But would you send me the link?
I most certainly will.
Because you'll smile. And I asked you earlier, had you listened to Joe's podcast? And nothing to do with Joe. You were just saying you were a bit busy, and you couldn't have. He picked Juan Tripp.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually listen.
No. So my view is, if any of our guests say Juan Tripp, then you are definitely an aerosexual.
Okay.
I have no doubt. Yourself and Joe are right up there.
I wasn't aware that you
No.
Yeah. So,
By the way, and when I heard Dead, this is the difference between you guys and me. I said Herb Kelleher. But my liver would be broken for a couple of weeks after that, and so on. On a little bit of a serious note, you put a lot of time into the charity down in Cork. The Air Ambulance. I got their name wrong. Can you tell us about that? Because you encouraged me to go to Wales, and I saw the operation over there. So would you explain? And by the way, I was so impressed with Wales. And it's all over the UK and Medivac and all that kind of stuff. I'm using all the wrong terminology, so you can clean it up for me. But what I loved in Wales was there was no place in Wales. It's not a big country, but there was no. It's the size of Munster, so there was no place in Wales, as far as I understand, that was not within 20 minutes of a rescue helicopter, particularly for brain accidents and so on. So would you tell me what's happening in Cork and so on, and your own involvement in it? Because I just love that you're using your expertise for something really important.
Sure. So back in 2016-ish, a number of people from Cork were very focused on setting up helicopter medical service. The acronym is HEMS, Helicopter Emergency Medical Service, because unbelievably Ireland hadn't got one. It hadn't got a HEMS service.
Just when you think about that, it's
incredible.
I'm not going on a bender to be negative, because it's Friday and I'm determined to be positive today. But a country with shit roads, bad roads, right? And lots of sea, and lots of long distances. For us not to have HEMS is
just... Indeed. And that was the situation right up until a number of things happened on funding challenges and everything else. But the service got launched in 2020, and it was a helicopter based out of Rathcoole in Cork.
It's charity.
All charity funded. All funded by the public. There was no government funding at all.
Would you mention who runs it, please?
It's a little bit of a sad story in terms of the chief executive of the organisation back then was Micheál Sheridan, and Micheál did a fantastic job throughout the COVID time as well. Very difficult for the charity. He spearheaded the dealing with the HSE and all the various stakeholders, and unfortunately, Micheál passed away a couple of weeks ago. And at 51 years of age, he was diagnosed with cancer. So he left the charity in November last year and became CEO of Mercy Hospital in Cork. So a great guy. But the service went through some funding challenges during COVID because everything was shut down, as you know. It did a number of missions pre-COVID and then obviously after COVID. and lives were saved. I mean, if one is in an accident in somewhere like Dingle or Feenet or Glengarriff, you will be waiting for a road ambulance versus a helicopter being dispatched and with you in 20-25 minutes.
So I just want to develop this point because I know it's something you have a great expertise on. So the two questions is, if you're Minister of Health in Ireland with the money, what would you do? And explain how the charities are so successful in the UK.
Sure. So here, just to finish that. So right now today, as of about a year ago, the HSE is now exclusively funding 2 helicopters in Rathcoole. It's funding that from the public purse, which is good. The charity rebranded as Critical Charity and got out of the air ambulance space because of that involvement with HSE. So those helicopters are live in Rathcoole as we speak. I think the issue now is how that's expanded throughout the country. It would be remiss of me not to mention the search and rescue, the S-92s that are here. The S-92s do an element of that, but
you're getting what are
they're the larger Sikorsky S-92s.
They're the big ones we see flying around. Okay.
So they can step in occasionally. The problem is they're very expensive helicopters for such missions, and they can't get close enough to patients in various situations.
They're the wrong.
It's the
wrong aircraft
exactly.
for what we're talking.
Exactly.
So if I'm traveling down with one of my kids or my wife, Monty, and there's an incident in Donegal, does that mean we have to wait for something coming from Cork?
It's a good question. The Air Corps have a slightly larger helicopter in Athlone. Also has
this is sorry, Tim. This is ad hoc. This is like, are the lads in the base? I'm not slagging the Air Corps, but I'm saying that it's not part of HEMS really. It's kind of like a bandage.
Yeah. So we haven't got a developed HEMS service in Ireland to the level that we should have, in my opinion, when you compare us like France, Germany, and Spain, etc.
Okay, go back. You're a minister. You have the shekels.
Yeah. So I think it has to be a developed network of something in the region of 4 or 5 smaller helicopters. These are not large helicopters, covering north, covering south, 24/7 with the appropriate financial support and indeed operational aids.
And to finish on this, as I said, I really believe it's an important subject and something that you have great expertise. Why are I was a bit confused when this all happened, and I went over to the UK and so on. And then I heard all your experience. Why are the charities so successful in the UK?
It's a really good question, and that was an eye opener for me when I went over to the UK. So in the UK, all the HEMS emergency helicopters are all charity funded, as you say. Yeah. I think from being there for a couple of years, there's a huge sense of pride. So, for example, the Dorset and Somerset. Yeah. The people of Dorset and Somerset see it's their helicopter serving their counties and everything else. Cornwall the same. Yeah. Wales the same. Wales now I think Wales has got 4 helicopters. So there's an enormous sense of it's our helicopter. We'll donate regularly. A lot of people leave legacies in their wills to it, etc., etc.
Is it a little bit the way people in Ireland think about the RNLI?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly. But I do think that
it's ownership.
It is ownership, and God forbid any one of us needs it. Yeah. But if you do, it's nice to know it's there. Yeah. And on that basis, people will probably contribute a 10 or 20 euros a month or something like that, or indeed whatever they can. Yeah. Yeah. But it's an area that we definitely need to get right in Ireland and
take ownership of it, and
indeed.
If there's one from Munster and there's
indeed absolutely.
Okay, let's move on. Did you see the story about Shell's decision on the refinery in Holland?
I did. I saw that 2 or 3 days ago.
So would you explain what happened? And it really pricked up my ears about it. So would you just explain?
Well, it's Shell having a rethink about alternative fuel development and sources. I think from what I'm reading, it's a corporate decision that either timing isn't right, or the capex that's needed to get that project over the line is a different number than what originally was thought.
Would you please explain what fuel they're trying to create?
Yeah, sustainable aviation fuel is SAF, is an alternative fuel to Jet A1, which is currently fueling the world's fleets. Sustainable aviation fuel comes from a variety of sources, biomass and crops, etc., etc. It's a reasonably complex process to do, but it reduces CO2 emissions in the air by a huge percentage, up to 70%. The issue the aviation industry has is we have a net zero 2050 target, and we have the current penetration of SAF being used is something in the region of 0.54, 0.6% of fuel is SAF. So it's a big journey to go. I see in the Times yesterday or the day before.
Sorry for cutting across.
Yeah.
Shell making that decision.
Yeah.
That's a real...
It's a big one.
It's a big message, isn't it?
It is a big message.
And it got swept under the carpet a bit. I heard it in one of the FT podcasts, and they were kind of shoving it over, and maybe we're too close to it because we are aviation heads. They were kind of shoving it over that there's a new CEO in Shell, and he's reviewing all projects and so on. But what it wasn't saying was Shell, actually, the way I read it, was Shell doesn't believe in SAF.
Yeah, well, it's certainly communicating an orange light in that whole area. That
Are you being polite?
Well, possibly, but
is it more red than orange?
I don't know, because I think we'd have to get under the skin of it. But it's certainly sending. If someone like Shell is saying this, well, what is that really communicating about alternative fuel sources, including SAF as well?
And you would say they make a shitload of money from fossil fuels and keep that going and all that.
Yeah, and it's also interesting as well. I mean, you look at the electric space, and Ratcliffe James Ratcliffe has pulled his new car electric design. He has pulled it completely because of the concerns about electric and everything else.
We're going to move on to electric in a second. You're sprinting ahead of me, Tim. Please. I'm a rookie at this stuff. The one thing that's topical that I'd like to talk to you about SAF is the decisions of BA and Lufthansa saying, you and Adrian are going with Lufthansa to somewhere in Germany, and they're saying you guys have to pay another 70 quid, euros or whatever it is, because of SAF.
Yeah, so that absolutely, and I see in the Irish Times this morning, just reading it, that Gallagher in IAG is, as you say, saying the same thing. Yeah. So that's really interesting when two huge players come out in the space of a week or 10 days and say this is going to cost more, and getting tickets is going to be more expensive. Yeah, that's also DEC communicating the same kind of amber light over this whole area of moving to SAF, moving to new fuels, moving to the targets that the industry has set itself. It's going to cost more. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next month with other airlines getting on that message as well, saying our ticket prices are going to go up. Yeah, and I'm not trying to, and our expertise, Tim, as you know, is in the low-cost sector. I would have just, and I think the guys in the Allegiant are talking about this, I would have just given the passengers the option. Like if you want to be green and eco-warrior, and I'm not slagging, sure. But if that's what's in your heart, then click that button, but realize that it's like an extra charge. Yeah. I'm not being naive. I'm not saying people will actually, when I look at my own kids, they're very conscious of it. Mm-hmm. And again, this isn't a criticism. Of course, it's not a criticism. I don't know what you see in your crew, but they talk about it. But I'm not too sure I see them, actively making decisions about fashion or anything that affects it. So. It's a good point. Yeah. It's a good point. I think the world is moving so fast as well, and the accuracy of information coming out is another issue in terms of what's actually true and what's half true. Yeah. But I do think that your point of Lufthansa and IAG or BA, whatever, if they're going to mandate now that price is going to go up, I would be surprised if that's optional in the future.
Yeah.
I think you'll see this morphing into the charges are going to go up and ticket prices are going to go up.
Yeah, and Sean Doyle in BA is a very smart guy. Sean didn't let that happen. For the sake of it, and he knew it would get a pushback and so on. Final question, but probably the most important, is you spent the last 3 years roughly with us.
Sure.
And it's been a great 3 years, I have to say. I've really enjoyed reconnecting with you. But,
same here.
Yeah, and we've had lots of laughs on the road, particularly when we meet arrogant people in Silicon Valley. But we
don't go there.
Yeah. My lawyers have suggested I don't name anybody in Silicon Valley. But to be serious about it, what's your gut feeling about electric aviation? And do you see your kids or your grandkids and yourself and Adrian, how real is it for you, and what do you feel about it?
That's a really good question.
Yeah, it's a big question as well. Because it's...
I'll condense it. So I absolutely believe there's two things. So one of my passions, interest areas, as you know, is also autonomy. So autonomy, let me come back to it. But electric, flying people around and pure electric battery-powered aircraft, yes, I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen in the numbers or at scale anytime soon. I think it's going to take longer than what has been communicated, shall we say, to the industry to date. I think you and I have spoken, and the team in Irelandia have spoken as well, and we're taking a very pragmatic approach, which is right. Lithium-ion batteries are effectively tapped out in terms of energy density and their capability to lift a certain load and fly it for 300 kilometers. So having said that, innovation is the innovation and brain power going into this is incredible, and we've met a lot of them, as you
and the amount of money, Tim, like over $10 billion,
and a lot of it lost.
Yeah,
as you know, a lot of it lost in terms of.
No,
a lot of it lost.
Yeah.
So, I think the approach we're taking is absolutely right. We're very pragmatic. We're very cautious, and we're very probing with a lot of the OEMs, all the OEMs that we've spoken to. This space is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen at huge scale anytime soon. I think it's going to take time. More work has to be done under the bonnet to make sure that the right capacity of batteries come along. And it's not just batteries. There's other things in these aircraft as well, including icing and stuff like that.
So what I'm hearing on that particular question, because I want to finish off on autonomy, what I hear on that is hybrid. My Tipperary version of hybrid is fossil fuel to get you up there.
Sure.
For all the obvious reasons, and then cruise in a bit like cars.
Indeed. Very same as cars.
Speak to me, young man, on autonomy, because I've been at some very interesting meetings with you about this.
Yeah, autonomy. So, I mean, it's a fascinating space.
For sure.
And, there's some really interesting companies in the States, and you and I have met them kind of all this stage. But autonomy, the concept of flying in an airliner with no pilots in the flight deck. I'm going to be slightly controversial now in saying I believe it's a certainty. Yeah. It's going to happen.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay, it's going to happen. Because if you stand back, and we were just talking about one trip.
Yeah.
So in the old Clipper days, and indeed even later than that, you had a captain, you got a co-pilot, you got a flight engineer, you got a radio operator, you got a navigator, and God knows what in the cockpit. Yeah. Who's to say that the aviation business has evolved up to the point that absolutely the last stop now is it's two pilots?
Yeah.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
EASA, the regulator in Europe, as you know, and Airbus are promoting it's a concept called EMCO. It's extended minimum crew operations. So this is looking to have one pilot on the flight deck on long-haul flights during the cruise section of the flight.
Yeah.
EASA has done a lot of work on this.
Yeah.
So that's only...
Would you throw out the controversial ball? Would you think EASA is ahead of the FAA on this?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
So can I just summarize it?
Yeah.
Because there's an angle to this I
Sure.
want to ask you about. If I understand what you're saying, Tim, it's going from 2 to 1 to 0, pilot-wise.
That's a really good... You've nailed the point there. That's a really good point. So Airbus more or less have communicated that the technology is kind of there to do that. And we've seen it when we're talking to great guys like Reliable Robotics in the States, and X-Wing and those kind of guys, Merlin as well. The technology is getting there. Yeah. Airbus is very keen to look at this reduced pilot for a certain portion of the flight. Yeah. But the backstory on that is the technology is there. So the pilot unions generically are nervous of this because they're saying that effectively one is none. That's the slogan. It just came out there a couple of weeks ago. One is none. Yeah. But that's interesting in itself because Airbus are kind of the view, as I say generically again, that actually if you're going down to one pilot, you might as well go down to none. Now this isn't going to happen on Tuesday weekday. Sure. This is a longer play. Yeah. But when you stand back and you look at the business objectively, the aircraft business, the aviation business, technology is now at such an advanced stage right now today, and when you superimpose AI on top of that, AI is only scratching away at aviation at the moment in terms of training, in terms of maintenance and stuff like that. We'll be in a completely different world in 5 years' time. So summing that up, autonomy, in my view, is going to happen. I think you'll get it starting in smaller aircraft initially with cargo operations.
Military.
Exactly. And arguably then in areas which are non-populated, and we get the data from that.
We could spend another 3 or 4 hours here.
I think so.
It's been fantastic. And I'm trying to work out, and myself and Ellen and Mary are trying to work out what we should give hosts as a thank you for doing it. And I was thinking, maybe we could actually get them the dinner with the person they wanted. I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to organise the one trip. But Tim, it was great. And
super, Dick.
Thank you for your time as well.
No, I really enjoyed the chat as well. Thank you, Dick. Thanks a lot. Fabulous.
You've been listening to Aer Dogs, brought to you by Irelandia Aviation and in conjunction with the Aer Dogs book by Tom Lyons. If you enjoyed listening to this interview, please subscribe or leave a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts.